What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And if my voice sounds a little bit different in this video, that's because I'm recovering from a cold, so I might seem more out of it than I usually am. But today I'm going to be reviewing a book, which I haven't done in quite a while, because recently I just finished reading one of the newest Star Wars books, The Living Force by John Jackson Miller. Now, I have some experience with this author, having read A New Dawn, the first book of the new Disney canon focused on Kanan and Jarrus, and I didn't like that book very much. I thought the tone was all over the place, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the way Kanan was characterized, so that put me off of Miller's writing for a while. But when I heard about this book, it seemed very interesting to me. I really like prequel stories, especially ones that take place shortly before the events of The Phantom Menace, because that is a time period rich with storytelling potential. And in case some of you don't already know, this book focuses on the Jedi Council after Qui-Gon Jinn challenges each of them to help at least one person. So they travel to the planet Quen to prove to the people that they are still the protectors of peace and justice in the galaxy that they claim to be, rather than simply being pawns of the Senate. But the evil pirate boss Zalastra is plotting in the background to unite several pirate factions to take down the Jedi. If that sounds at all interesting to you, then you'll definitely enjoy this book. I found it to be a pretty breezy read, and the whole story is really dedicated to characterizing a lot of the prequel Jedi we never got to spend a lot of time with in the films or the Clone Wars. Seeing them going about their everyday lives, doing simple, mundane things, helping out people, talking to the citizens of the galaxy. One of my favorite moments in Tales of the Jedi was Count Dooku standing with the people against a corrupt senator, opposing the idea of the Jedi serving only the Senate, saying instead that they serve the people of this republic. This is basically an entire book of that, and I absolutely loved it. Of all the Jedi in this book, Depa Billaba is probably the closest to being the protagonist. The story establishes how her experience mentoring and bonding with this young girl, Kyla, opens up her mind to eventually taking on Caleb Doom as her Padawan, something she'd previously been opposed to the idea of. But although she has the most defined character arc, the other Jedi get some pretty great moments too, like Evan Peel teaching some hooligan street kids, or Ki-Adi-Mundi trying and failing to eat an ice cream. It's interesting to see a more fun, playful, but also human and empathetic side of these people we only ever saw as stoic military leaders in the films and other external media. There are some surprisingly moving scenes in this book, especially with Yoda, as he forms a friendship with one of the men on Quen, whose father is seriously ill, and later in the story, Yoda keeps the dying man company in his last few hours of life. This book also doesn't have a lot of the same problems that I had with A New Dawn, for example, where I got tonal whiplash at every turn. We don't go from goofy hijinks to someone getting brutally murdered. There's some strangely effective humor in this book, particularly with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan continuously bumping into these three goofball pirate guys. With that being said, though, the whole villain subplot, and honestly the entire story, is kind of inconsequential to some extent. Don't get me wrong, I actually really like Zalastra as an antagonist. She's a far different Star Wars villain than what we've seen before. Her motivations for wanting to kill the Jedi are logical considering her background, and there's a lot more to her than the simple "I'm a sadistic monster" trope that we're used to seeing, but I never feared that she would succeed. whenever she was torturing or threatening to kill Depa Billaba, I was just like, well, I know she dies on collar during Order 66, so she'll be fine. Which I suppose is the curse of all prequel stories. We always know that at least some of the characters will make it out. Except in this case, we know that literally everyone survives. But oddly enough, that doesn't bother me in this case because the story isn't about the conflict as much as it is about the root of the conflict. How have the Jedi influenced this, and what can they do to counteract it? If anything, the book relishes in its simplicity, and frankly, I've never understood the problem with smaller stories that don't connect to a grand, overarching narrative. Solo: A Star Wars Story is one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and it's also pretty inconsequential. When people see a story focused on the entire Jedi Order, they probably expect an epic tale with galaxy-shifting events, but it's kind of the opposite of that, and that's what I like most about it. But that's pretty much it for my review of The Living Force. I really enjoyed this book. It's not one of my favorite Star Wars books, but I think it's a valuable story. As previously stated, don't go into it expecting an epic adventure with events that alter the course of galactic history. It's just hanging out with the Jedi, and if that's enough for you, then you'll get a lot out of it, as I did. But you guys let me know your thoughts. What do you think of The Living Force? Have you read it? Have you not read it? Are you thinking about reading it, having now listened to my review? Just whatever your thoughts are. Please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.